Hello. My name is William Randolph Hearst. I'm here to talk about the way my reporting affected the American people and ultimately boosted support for a war.
Don't you mean my newspapers?
Please Joe, just let me have this. You got an award named after you while I have nothing. Every night I cry myself to sleep. My newspaper, the New York Journal, reached more than 1 million Americans at its peak during the late 1800s to early 1900s. It could be called one of the first tabloids in history as it used over-exaggerated stories and sensationalized headlines in order to sell papers.
I was the owner of the New York World, the most successful paper in all of New York.
Ha. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha.
Moving on, my paper was very similar in the way the information was presented. It would make a claim that would grab the reader's attention and back it up with sometimes questionable information. We both used our papers to gain support for our own social and political beliefs. It all started with revolutions popping up in Cuba. The United States had recently become more interested in acquiring new territory with their own domestic conflict resolved. The Cuban revolutions was the spark that ignited the fire of yellow journalism regarding the country. Yellow journalists like myself picked up on the conflicts and used them to stir up stories about how terribly the Cuban people were treated. The papers often criticized Spain and called for United States action.
Some papers would depict extreme conditions that were often obtained via third-hand accounts that likely didn't have much truth to them in the first place. The stories would be distorted by those sympathetic to the cause. Some of the false information spreading can be blamed on reporters who barely ever fact-checked articles before sending them back home to the editors.
Nevertheless, many people read and believe this kind of journalism. Yellow journalism allowed the Cuba situation to become a national debate by bringing attention to the event. The people who had read the accounts and descriptions in the paper tended to want the government to take action. The major turn towards a direct conflict took place when the USS Maine mysteriously exploded in a Havana harbor. The World, New York Journal, and other similar establishments were quick to pounce on the story and instantly blame the Spanish. These were the most sensational claims of the time. Although no one knew what had actually happened, the constant headlines claiming an attack by Spain eventually rang true within many people's minds.
Although the news was largely exaggerated and even outright false at times, it succeeded in riling up the public. The pressure from its own citizens and its desire to free the people of Cuba and Philippines ultimately led the United States to declare war on Spain, thus starting one of the most one-sided, yet most influential wars in world history.
Funny how a few over-exaggerations can change the entire course of humanity.